Så satte de først fyr på huset. Odpalali domy, w których żywcem płonęli mieszkańcy Kibucu. This is my second time here.
Yeah.
For the first time I was here 2 years ago, but it was normal. And I visited here. I dancing, I used to live here, and to be honest, I can't recognize this place. It's like really different. And, I hope he's still alive.
We're committed here were some of the same crimes against humanity that led to the creation of the State of Israel in the first place. That's how bad it is, and that's why it goes to the heart of the Israeli psyche, and that is why the Israeli people are haunted by what happened in Jerusalem.
כזה דבר לא ראיתי בעיראק, בדאעש. נכנסתי למוסול עם הכוחות הכורדים, אחרי שדאעש עזב. לא ראיתי כאלה דברים, ואני בטוח שהם עשו לא מעט, אבל לא ככה, ולא במקום כזה, ובצורה כזאת מתוכננת. זה רצח בכוונה תחילה, באופן נפלא.
אנחנו כואבים את החורבן של עצמנו, של הקהילה הזאת שלך, של אנשים גיבורים וסיפורים מטורפים. פה המון כוח, המון אש, המון אש. אפשר לראות את הקהילה. אני חושב שהרבה מאיתנו הם יכולים קצת כאב פיזי בימים האלה ולא שיוון הלב הטוטלי שבעצם יש לכולם.
אנחנו בסוף הסיור הזה, מה אתה חושב שהם ישדרו בסוף היום?
הם מבינים שמה שקרה כאן מסמל לפני ואחרי. זאת אומרת, המציאות היא שונה.
Of death and destruction all around this small settlement right next to the Gaza Strip in southern Israel.
קיבוץ אוניר אוס, czas jakby się zatrzymał 7 października nad ranem.
בדרך כלל אתם מנהלים קרב מבחינתך קשה, אבל לא ממש כמעט.
אני חושב שעכשיו, לאור המאמצים שעשינו, נקבל טיפה יותר זמן, אבל העולם שוכח מהר.
Hamas gunmen set fire to the houses to smoke the people out. The world should not forget who started this on October 7th and what they did. I don't know. I don't know. News cycles from news cycles. You know that as well as me, as I do. And, you know, there's lots of imagery coming out of Gaza. It's upsetting. But the context of what's happening in Gaza, you know, is all around us here.
So you're here for the context?
No dia 7 de outubro, o maior massacre que eu já vi na minha carreira, que tem mais de 25 anos.
אני חייב להגיד לך גם הם הלילה, אני מבטיח לך, יחלמו על התמונות, כמו שאנחנו נחלום על התמונות שראינו כאן. אלה תמונות שאני לא אשכח לעולם. זה ממש כאילו ביקרנו בגיהנום.
עמיתי מגדיר את זה, זה באמת ביקור בגיהנום, וזה ממש רק שעה וקצת מפה. אתה יודע, פגשתי שם את שחר הרבש"ץ שנפגע, והוא הגיע לשם ללוויה, אבל גם הוא כבר לא יודע אם הוא יוכל לחזור לתפקד שם.
עידן, הסיפור של המלחמה הזאת, שכנראה נספר אותו הרבה מאוד שנים, אם ב-73 ברמת הגולן מי שהציל את המצב זה לא מדינת ישראל, זה לא הצבא, זה המט"קים, המ"פים, ומי שנהיה לחבר'ה הנחושים בטנקים. פה זה הם, זה הרבש"צים, זה כיתות הכוננות, זה מערכת ההגנה שהייתה הכי שטופה, הכי הוזנחה, הכי דרדרנו אותה באמת לרמה כמעט אפס, והם אלה שהגנו בגופם על האזרחים שם, כי הכל קרס. עכשיו, הדבר המדהים, אני מבקר את הקהילות כל יום, אני מסיים את היום שלי באחת הקהילות. וכל הזמן, לא חשוב מה הנושאים שדנים בהם, זה הכל דברים קשים מאוד, מהמערכות, מהתחושות, לחזור, לא לחזור. זה העניין הזה, הוא עולה כל הזמן. שהם גם נעלבו, זה לא רק העניין, בסוף זה היה כאילו תחושת ההגנה שלנו, בסדר, סוג בצד, חיל אוויר צריך לבוא, סיפרו לנו סיפורים על זה.
מה, הם מרגישים שהם קשרו?
פגעו בנו בזכות שלנו להגן על עצמנו. בסוף
לא נתנו להם את הכלים לשמור על הקהילות שלהם.
כן.
לתושבים שמתחילים, אנחנו רואים אותם לצאת קצת, כן, לחפש אולי משהו. כי אין דרך בסוף לעשות מה שאמיר אומר, לחסר.
Or heading towards a ground operation in the Gaza Strip, and likely to assume that Hamas was preparing itself for...
שבה עושים דברים ביחד. דרך אגב,
בכל היישובים, בכל הארץ. כי האנשים ראו מה היה ונוצר שפר אמון ענק. כן, אנחנו סומכים על זה, אבל אנחנו רוצים להגן על עצמנו. ואנחנו חייבים לעשות
أهلنا وأجهزتنا وأمننا
אלא בכל הארץ. עד היום, אגב, עשו איזשהו שיפוי, נתנו קצת נשקרה תורה, שזה...
منازلهم في غلاف غزة أيضا يحملون نتنياهو وحكومته.
זה לא גם העניין של כולם 30, כולם 40, מה עולה כלי נשק? אבל תשאלו את היחס. כן, היחס כן,
our lives, and that's what we are. Women, mothers, daughter.
אני מכיר שבקושי
מפתיע.
בלבד. המשטרה אומרת נתנו 3,000. הכל תקוע במשרד לביטחון.
The larger military equipment are more.
Unbelievable. There was so many energy. People came from all over the world. They took flights and came back to Israel, whether they were called and even on the army called, in order to recruit themselves, so-called, to the reserve forces, the very big divisions which we had seen in recent months in Israel seem to have not completely disappeared, but almost completely disappeared in a manner which is very, very touching, given the horrors that we faced 2 weeks ago and the difficulty that is facing the country as a whole. And that is something that is impossible not to see. Left alone. Orthodox all together. Speaking of Orthodox, we're about several hundreds, if not more, wanting to join the effort underground, wanting to join the army after so many years of that being a sticking point in the moment of truth. We're all indeed united. Ruth Wasserman-Landy and Colonel Alon Vitar, thank you so very much for joining us. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for watching.
Made for me, a unique concept in Israel. Custom-made men's fashion to your measurements. Made for me, designer of all your events. Schedule your appointment at www.madeforme.co.il. Made for me, official dresser of I-24 News.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Israel is officially in a state of war. This is a very active scene, and we get in the car as we're talking about
100 soldiers and civilians have been kidnapped.
we just don't know anything.
Entire families, including babies and children and elderly, were butchered in their beds. Awaken the giant, and we are ready and we are strong.
Everyone is showing up. This is the unity.
Conocí a trabajar en I-24 News en el año 2013. Ese mismo año, como parte de la serie de documentales de reportaje Insight, viajé a la Argentina para entrevistar al fiscal Alberto Nisman, que había determinado inconstitucional el memorándum de entendimiento entre Argentina e Irán firmado por la expresidenta Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, que estaba relacionado con el atentado a la AMIA de 1924, que dejó un saldo de 85 muertos y más de 100 heridos. Soy Mariano, donde trabajamos a diario. El 18 de enero del año 2015 ocurre un suceso impactante. El fiscal.
זו חליפה שלי. זאת החליפה שלי. שגיא. בצבע של העיניים שלו. זאת הבת שלי. שאני אענו את כל החיים.
היום הם כבר היו אמורים להיות זוג נשוי בהנגאובר מהחתונה שתוכננה לאתמול, יום שישי, 20 לחודש.
החתונה הייתה אמורה להיות לבנה. כל הפרחים היו אמורים להיות כותנה. מהכותנה של סידורי שולחן. הכנו את הזר ללוויה.
בשבת השחורה לפני שבועיים נסע שגיא ועומר לדירה שלהם בהרצליה. שניהם עובדים בהייטק ועושים גם לא מעט מילואים. עומר בתור פרמדיק ושגיא בתור מפקד צוות בלוטר. קצין, ביחידה ללוחמה בטרור.
הולכים במותה. פתחנו את החדשות ושגיא קפץ מהמיטה. אפילו לא קל, פשוט קפץ. כבר היה לו מדים ביד. ולפני שהוא צריך את היחידה.
אף אחד לא התקשר להקפיץ אותו.
לא. תוך כמה דקות כבר היינו בדלת. הוא נתן לי נשיקה על השפתיים. הוא אמר זאת פחות משלמו.
אף אחד לא הופתע מזה ששגיא רץ ראשון, גם בקרב שבו ייפול בקיבוץ בארי. כזה הוא היה, מילדות. השתתף באינספור תוכניות מנהיגות, עשה שנת שירות, מתקבל ליחידה 8200, אבל בחר ללכת ליחידה מובחרת. גם קיבל מצטיין רמטכ"ל.
היו לו לא מעט תכונות טובות, שכל אחת מהתכונות, אם הייתה לבחור טיפוסי, אומרת וואו, פסנתרן, וואו. תלמיד מצטיין, וואו. תורם לקהילה, וואו. בן או נכד או משהו, וואו. חבר, וואו. זאת אומרת, בכל דבר הוא היה וואו.
לפני 6 שנים הכיר את עומר, ולשניהם היה ברור שזה זה. בני המשפחה חיכו את בן הזוג החדש, גם החבר'ה מהלוטר, צוות שגיא, היו מאושרים עבור המפקד הנערץ שלהם.
לפני 7 שנים, שגיא חזר מדרום אמריקה, הוא סיפר לכל הצוות שלו, הוא יצא מהארון. ואז בחור אחר מהצוות, שהוא טיפה יותר שמרן, נקרא לזה, הוא מצלצל אליי, ומתחיל באקסטאזה לצעוק אני לא מאמין! בסדר! אני לא מאמין! לאף אחד לא היה אכפת. שמחנו בשמחתו, הוא היה מספר הרבה על עומר, היה הרבה מעבר לזה.
בשנה שעברה, כששגיא חגג יום הולדת 30, הגיעה הצעת הנישואים.
אני ידעתי שהוא כאן טבעת. יש לי אצבעות שמנות. אז הוא מדד בזמן שישבתי את האצבע כדי להכין את הטבעת. לא הרגשתי, לא ידעתי. ובתנרית, בפסגה של ההרגש. שגיא הביא את הטבעת.
אנחנו כבר שיר לחופה?
הקשבנו להמון שירים. שמענו את זכיתי לאהוב שלי בלי לידר. בעיניים של שגיא התמלאו דמעות. הסתכלנו אחד לשני בעיניים וידענו שזה היה שיר.
שהגיע לבית העלמין, היו אותם מוזמנים שהיו אמורים להריע להם בדרך לחופה. בין מאות המלוות עמדו הלוחמים שעשו איתו את כל הדרך מהמסלול ביחידה המובחרת ועד לקרב האחרון בבארי. במשך שעות נלחמו בגבורה תחת פיקודו, הצליחו לחלץ אנשים מהתופת. בשבת בלילה מגיע מידע על אזור בקיבוץ ששורץ במחבלים.
שגיא מקבל את הפקודות ומתחיל להריץ את הצוות כמה שיותר מהר.
הוא בראש?
הוא בראש, הוא מוביל. אני הרגשתי שהוא רגוע. שאבתי מזה ביטחון שבראש הכוח עמד שגיא. צריך להבין, בארי באותם רגעים הוא שדה קרב של ממש. בארי חשוך לחלוטין, אין חשמל. מעלינו יורים מסוקים של חיל אוויר. המון ירי. שגיא מוריד פקודות באופן מאוד מאוד ברור ונחרץ. ואנחנו מבצעים. אנחנו יוצאים מהמחסה, חותרים למגע, וכמה שניות לאחר מכן נורא עצורות.
שגיא נפל בקרב מול המחבלים, אבל הכאוס בבארי גדול, אין הודעה רשמית, וכולם משתגעים מדאגה. עומר שגויס לגדוד שלו בצפון.
When they are trapped there across in the Gaza Strip.
A group, if you want, dividing to different missions and so on. Like every government, if you want. The leadership of Hamas, which located outside, abroad, if you want.
Gaza and denouncing France's support of Israel.
You can't support the killing of civilians and also defend human rights.
Terrorists of Hamas. Well, elsewhere, as you can see, it's another weekend of pro-Palestinian protests in London, around the globe, and in New York City. There, demonstrators continue to demand an end to U.S. support of Israel and are calling for a ceasefire. Critics will point out that some of the protests
that Hamas inside. Part of the interests are common. Part of the interest of those two groups are the same interests. And part of them connected to the main belonging, or to the main missions, local missions or outside missions. In the end of the day, all of them going on the same route. All of them, the inside leadership and outside, have the same mission, have the same strategic, have the same courses, have the same...
When we're talking about issues that do involve
Dalawang tay na naman guys. Yung mga tay kasi dito is ang trabaho nila sa so dalawang tay na naman yung nasugatan. Yung mga Thailander kasi dito guys, ang work nila is sa agriculture, sa mga field. So dun sila usually nagtatrabaho. Kaya siguro yung sharpness na from the galing sa sa racket, natamaan yung mga worker. Kawawa naman sila. Sana hindi muna magtrabaho yung mga Thailander. Kawawa naman sila.
Yeah, and it's just that we're given a mandate if the situation was not complex enough. We've seen so-called peace summit convening today in Cairo. I'm not sure how much the term peace truly reflects what's been the sentiment there. But even within the frameworks of this summit, it seems that the different regional heavyweights and European members struggling to speak in one voice, not even able to agree on a final statement at this point in time, at least. It really embodies the fact that many regional players here are still somewhat on the fence.
It's very, very important to take into account that the events as they are at the moment have huge repercussions for the entire region, including Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, etc. But more so than anyone else, Egypt and Jordan, because of the geographic proximity and because of their fear of having Palestinians enter their own territory. Now, on the one hand, I absolutely understand that. Everybody in this region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, understand what is Hamas and what potential threat allowing Palestinians from Gaza to enter into their territory may mean to their security. They don't trust the Hamas. They have qualms about what they may do within their territory. They're very concerned about allowing Palestinians to enter their own territory, and that is legitimate. On the other hand, there are bombardments, something that is equally legitimate on the part of Israel, simply because if we let Hamas and let it go and leave it in the manner that it is at the moment, Israel can have no peace, not a moment of any kind of threat, because very obviously and very clearly the Hamas wishes and says and declares that it wants to slaughter Israeli civilians, as it has very clearly shown that it is willing to do 2 weeks ago with the horrific deeds that they have all perpetrated. And that's why Israel needs to bombard the Gaza Strip and needs to make away with Hamas. What the IDF is trying to do is to make the civilian, so-called civilian population evacuate their homes in northern Gaza in order to have as few civilian casualties as possible. And Egypt sees this as a huge threat. Now that needs a tete-a-tete, a very close, very intimate understanding and talks between Israel and Egypt, because Israel has no interest to
oppose Egypt in any way to force Gazans into Egyptian territory. On the contrary, a stable Egypt is an interest of Israel. And this is something that has to be emphasized again and again to Egypt, and perhaps an agreement would be reached where just women and children from Gaza, those Palestinian Gazans, can be allowed into Egypt. Not a single man. But this needs to be spoken of with the Egyptian authorities, and they need to be convinced that Israel has not any intention at all to force Gazans into their territory.
To bear in mind what's happening on Egyptian streets, and not just Egypt, but Jordan and elsewhere. The threat to the stability of their regime is evident. So this is perhaps part of the explanation, but we'll put a stop right here and go back to that in a second, because we want to jump up north. Belarus, Slovenia 24 News correspondent standing by there. Malia, thank you very much for joining us. Well, it's been a busy day on the northern front. That's perhaps an understatement, and also Hezbollah's second in command speaking this evening, not ruling out the option of Hezbollah getting all in.
Yes, they're not ruling that thing out. I have to say that in the last couple of hours, it was relatively quiet here on the northern border of Israel. But it wasn't like this, of course, earlier this day, with a lot of incidents where Hezbollah militants actually fired rockets, anti-tank rockets, guided missiles into Israeli villages. We're talking about an incident in Hanita, another one in the Bir'am, where a fire is actually right now is taking place, and the Israeli authorities are trying to cool that down. Also in Margaliot, where two workers from Thailand actually were hit by missile, and where they were injured and moved, of course, to the nearby hospital in Tzfat. So the tactic is like this, and I guess that in the last 48 hours, Israeli army is actually understanding what is happening on the Hezbollah border, on the Hezbollah side. It is that specific missile, the anti-tank guided missile, that is can be fired from 2 to 3 kilometers from the border, and they can take cover because it's not that close. And on the other hand, it is very precise, and it can hit the target with the Israeli border. So 8 Israeli soldiers until now has lost their lives in this conflict, and on the other hand, on the other side, Hezbollah militants, and if we're talking about the cells that are that contain maybe 2 or 3 Hezbollah militants that have been hit by Israeli airstrikes or drones, we're talking about 8 only in this 24 hours. So we're talking about dozens of Hezbollah militants also have been killed, and of course they will seek revenge for this, and that specific revenge could escalate this whole situation here at the border.
Yeah, as volatile and as tense as it possibly can be. Thank you very much, Valir Skladina, 24 News correspondent up in the north. Thank you very much for this. And circling back to this peace summit that convened in Cairo today, that we have been discussing earlier in the broadcast. And by the way, on that note, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who took part in this summit, is currently in Israel, meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It's another visit of solidarity on behalf of a Western leader. But in Cairo, again, the regional heavyweights, the European diplomats, struggled to speak in one voice when it comes to a concluding statement, and yet made many statements during the summit. Take a listen.
Istihdat, Egypt condemns with complete clarity the targeting, killing, or intimidation of all peaceful civilians, and at the same time expresses its extreme astonishment that the world stands by and watches a catastrophic humanitarian crisis affecting 2.5 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and collective punishment, a siege are imposed on them, starvation and violent pressure for forced displacement.
وحصار وتقوية. No excuse or reason for inflicting such a collective and cruel suffering on human lives, like the one happening in Gaza. We must be unequivocal in condemning and resisting loss of any single innocent life. By dehumanizing Palestinian lives, Israel aims to normalize Palestinian suffering. We say never. Never for Palestinians, never for anybody else.
I am sure we all share the revulsion at Hamas's murderous acts of terrorism, the targeting of the civilians, the murdering of children, the desecration of dead bodies. And I'm sure we're all distressed by the plight of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, whose lives have been made harder, more painful, and more dangerous because of the brutal attacks by Hamas on the 7th of October. And we all mourn the dead, both Israeli and Palestinian.
Crossing now back to Ruth Westerman, Landy. Ruth, again, a lack of ability to speak in one clear voice there, and yet Hamas's strategy when it comes to the global community seems to be clear at this point in time, trying to perhaps improve its reputation, if we can even use those terms, when it comes to the hostage. Over 210 Israeli hostages held captive by Hamas as we speak. The release of the two hostages last night under due to their humanitarian condition, according to Hamas, is an attempt to do just that. That might shift the situation in favor of Hamas, or is it too little, too late?
First of all, allowing two women out of 200 and above civilian population, amongst which there are elderly, some of them are not well in terms of their medical situation, babies, women, whole families, certainly does not and should not improve any image of the Hamas. What is causing, I think, a huge distress, and this is the emphasis that needs to be made, is the unease which, and I said that before, neighboring countries have given the rising instability and the potential which they fear greatly of it seeping into their territory in whatever manner, whether it's the inside street coming out and protesting because it's being fed with incitement and never shown the Israeli side properly for decades, either in the school books or in the propaganda in general, or have it in the fear of a tremendous amount of refugees, in a matter of speaking, forcing their way into their territory, be it Egypt or Jordan. This is very, very troublesome indeed and needs to be settled. This is also causing a kind of a trickle effect, not only because of the instability and the fear that this may influence Jordan and Egypt, it's also affecting other countries which are further away. The instability doesn't serve them, and that's why Israel and the U.S. need to address this issue immediately, sensitively, behind closed doors at the highest level, and calm the leaders and make them understand that everything will be coordinated in a manner which will be conducive to all sides. This is critical, absolutely critical, whether it's finding a solution such as women and children only going out or none at all, which would be a pity because then more civilians would get hurt, and that is not something that Israel is interested in. But certainly it's impossible to have Israel completely stop the bombardments and not take care of its own security, given the situation.
Yes, and as we speak, we're seeing live images now on the screen of protests in Tel Aviv this hour for the release of the over 210 Israelis being held hostage by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The families of the hostages are concerned that the pending ground operation, Colonel Alona Vital, here with us in studio, might not be able to achieve both main objectives. One, dismantling Hamas. The second, bring the hostages back home.
I think that Israel should continue work on those two main courses, which means, I would say, war in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, sorry. We are in the beginning of a war, of wide escalation if you want, and at the same time, parallel efforts to continue behind the door or under the table on the hostages issue. But I'm sure that the time is not working for our favor. And as long as it will be finished in a short time, I think that it's better for us. We know for, I would say, based on our experience during the last 10 years, if you want, from the last military operation which happened in Gaza in the summer of 2014, that we have two dead soldiers in the hand of Hamas.
Right.
So far, we didn't release them. So this is the main background that we should remember, that in order to release all of them, I think that it's quite different from the last case, but the time is working. So I think that it's a main factor, not just the international and the local interest, but also the time.
Right.
And I think that in a parallel way, we should finish our preparation in order to open the escalation of the war, if you want, with the boots on the ground in Gaza Strip. The mission, or the main, I would say, a course of the decision, if you want, of the Israeli government to collapse the capability of Hamas, the political and the military, is on the table. We should not forget it and not hesitate. This is the main course, and we should continue work to implement it.
And if we are indeed nearing or heading towards a ground operation in the Gaza Strip, and likely to assume that Hamas was preparing itself for such a scenario, booby traps, etc. What are we likely to see in the first days of such fighting, as much as we can say, of course?
Well, it seems that it's not going to be easy mission, but and it will be complicated. But I think that not get into details, but to operative program and so on. But mainly, I think that a mass of units and the mass of say attack, and day by day with a lot of efforts from all kind of directions, it will be the main key, if you want, to succeed and to continue and complete the mission inside Gaza, underground and above.
Ruth Westerman, Landy, briefly, if you can, obviously the idea of spokesperson also addressed that earlier this evening. The resilience of the home front is essential, especially as we're nearing the second phase of the war. Adhering the home front command orders, of course, but also this spiritual strength, if you will, that is part of this war effort.
The spirit of the people of Israel is unbelievable. The resolve and the energy. People came from all over the world. They took flights and came back to Israel, whether they were called and even on their own accord, in order to recruit themselves, so-called, to the reserve forces, the very big divisions which we had seen in recent months in Israel seem to have not completely disappeared, but almost completely disappeared in a manner which is very, very touching, given the horrors that we faced 2 weeks ago and the difficulty that is facing the country as a whole. And that is something that is impossible not to see. Left and right, ultra-Orthodox and secular.
All together. And speaking of ultra-Orthodox, we're about several hundreds, if not more, wanting to join the effort underground, wanting to join the army after so many years of that being a sticking point in the moment of truth. We're all indeed united. Ruth Westerman Landy and Colonel Alona Vitar, thank you so very much for joining us. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for watching.
Israel is officially in a state of war. This is a very active scene, and we need to get in the car as we're talking.
More than 100 soldiers and civilians have been kidnapped.
We just don't know anything.
Entire families, including babies and children and elderly, were butchered in their beds. Awaken the giant, and we are ready and we are strong.
Everyone is showing up. This is the unity.
Particular project with a gross capacity of 103.5 megawatt will be producing around 230 gigawatt hour of clean renewable energy per year.
Salido aquí nos ven para clamar por la lluvia. Si en verdad en estos momentos el calentamiento global está afectando a Bolivia, y no solo a Bolivia, sino a todo el mundo entero. Y nosotros necesitamos lluvia para los sembradíos.
Keto reserve. We have the right ingredients and we have to do the job. And then if we have the right ingredients and we do the job, that the Fakita can be protected.
Broadcast here on I-24 News as we continue our rolling coverage on day 15 of Israel's war with Hamas. This hour, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meeting Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, arriving here in Israel for a solidarity visit straight from a summit in Cairo earlier today. In the north, renewed anti-tank fire from southern Lebanon in the aftermath of Israel's defense minister visit there. Hezbollah's second in command not ruling out the option of getting all in. In the south, IDF spokesperson saying no less than 550 failed launches by Hamas and Taliban Islamic Jihad landed in Gaza territory since the beginning of the war. Israel's war cabinet convening an assessment session this evening in the Southern Command ahead of a pending ground operation. The IDF chief of staff is saying, "We are ready to win." But we begin this broadcast on the northern front, an alarming front indeed. 24 News correspondent Valir Sladin is joining us from there. Valir, thank you very much for joining us. So in the past several hours, it's been relatively quiet, but earlier today we have seen some sort of an escalation with around 8 anti-tank squads being foiled in the span of 24 hours alone. The IDF, of course, hitting back targets in southern Lebanon. Not a good sign.
Well, absolutely not a good sign. That, of course, is the situation here that has been going on since the beginning of the conflict and the exchange of fire 2 weeks ago. And as we see that Hamas is, Hezbollah is actually keeping this equation going on. If you attack us, we will attack back, and if you kill one of us, we will kill one of you. And just a couple of minutes ago, Hezbollah announced that 2 of his militants were actually killed by the Israeli airstrike earlier today. I guess that's the airstrike where a car was actually hit. We know about at least one person back then that was reportedly being killed. Now we know that 2 militants were killed. There was also another incident where an Israeli drone attacked a cell squad right in Hardov that was trying to launch a missile, an anti-tank missile from the village of Kafar Shuba and Mazar al-Shab'a, which are right on the Hardov area. That was not successful, but the Israeli attack apparently was successful and killed also 1 person at least, as we understand. The Islamic Jihad also announced that one of its militants that is operating in southern Lebanon was also killed. So all of this situation is actually meaning that they will seek revenge, and that revenge could escalate, of course, the situation in general. But far away from the situation on the ground here, we know that the French President Emmanuel Macron did say that the French representatives are talking to Hezbollah in order to prevent any further escalation here in the border. And also the Foreign Ministry of the U.S., the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, said that he is in contact with Najib Mikati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, in order to prevent any escalation. Of course, none of the players here, not the West nor the Lebanese government, are interested in any escalation. Of course, the Lebanese people are going to pay a price if war was on their between Hezbollah and Israel was actually it starts. But of course, Hezbollah has his own consideration, and we can say that he's the de facto government, at least in southern Lebanon.
Yeah, the clout or lack thereof of the Lebanese government over Hezbollah is definitely in doubt. Valir Sladin, 24 News correspondent up in the north, thank you very much for this. And joining us now in studio, Major General Eitan Dangot, former coordinator of government activities in the Palestinian territories. Major General Dangot, thank you so very much for being here with us, trying to recap 15 days of fighting ahead of what seems to be the beginning of a new phase of the war. And I would like to ask you, what should be the question we're asking tonight?
I think first of all I would like to share with you my principle concerning this war. We are in a regional war. There is not war only with Gaza. We are in a regional war which the main effort now is the Gaza Strip, while we were obliged to enter, unfortunately, for what happened there with these murderers killers, butchers, Nazis, call them as they supposed to be.
Apply here.
But in the north, from around 4 to 5 days ago, it's not local tactic events of escalation. It's development that is looking by the enemy, Hezbollah and the Iranian, looking the development at the south, looking on the international activities concerning the Middle East. This is another flow. And you can assess and you can realize that there is a large scale of events, especially with attack by anti-tank missile on Israeli soldiers or military units, on kibbutzim or moshavim, and entering to Israel by some occasions. But the next step by them will be much more escalated. Then people will say, well, no, we are now in a war. Don't forget inside the issue of the West Bank. Don't leave it never, because it can move it or to shake it in some events. But the main effort, as it looks now, is on the south around the goal that Israel stated when it went out for these activities, that is now sharing to three main efforts. Military, to destroy Hamas and Jihad Islamic structure, to prevent them anymore to be presented. I would paint it as when you open the window from your home, some of the villages around Gaza, you will not see anymore. This is the beauty on the Israeli government, anymore Hamas or a post of such terror activities. The second is the kidnapping of can be between 200 to some other thousands that we are not aware about them yet, that are in Gaza, from babies to elders. And the third is the humanitarian effort that has started already from Cairo to the people. When you mix them, above all is the military activity. Where are we there? We are very close, sensitive to the other kind of tools besides the strike, especially from the air, to integrate other military concept of entering to Gaza or making another kind of activities in order to climb up to the second and the main step or major step that we are there now.
So I want to go back to your opening remark, Major General Dangot, that it's not if or when a regional war is to be ignited, but rather it already is the case. When we're talking about the Lebanese front, if we were using a terminology of who will make a mistake first or who will make a move that will trigger something bigger, you're suggesting, Major General Dangot, that it's not a matter of this or that act, but rather of a decision.
Of course, and the decision is in Hezbollah headquarters or with Nasrallah and Iran. Israel already declared that we will not create the first step in order to create some kind of high attack on Lebanon. Maybe it will be done when you identify some activities. But look, Israel choice, and Israel decided to declare, to make it clear, we have interest only in the southern, on Gaza. Hezbollah during the first days was active like tactics and local event. From mid of this week, it climbed up, as I tell you, to a regional area between Rosh Hashanah to the meeting border, Syria, Jordan, Israel. Look what I described you. Major area is the Lebanon-Israel border. We are there, and we are only responding in order to keep, as we can, the timetable according. Meanwhile, there is some international efforts to warn Lebanon, to warn Hezbollah. That was one of the major reasons that the United States President paid a visit to Israel, in order to signal, because above Iran and Hezbollah, this is for Israel, the local enemy, you have also Russia. And this is something that can create.
Local, that's
but
certain.
as an Israeli, as a civilian, as a Zionist patriot, as a democratic human being. I'm fighting here for the future of our existence at our home, at our land, to bring our next and send our future generations that will suffer from what happened on the 7th of October. We have to create a new establishment of the Israeli state around us. There is a very large local scars that are motivated to destroy Israel, and don't hesitate or not forget those countries like Egypt, Jordan, and other modern Arab countries, and also Europe. They are sleeping. They will come to their area, not in a year or not in 2 years, but it will be there in the coming 5 to 10 years. The same issue. Murderers are murderers. We are fighting for our life now.
Nevertheless, unfortunately, history proves that time and again. Major General Danbut, you're staying with us, but I do want to join our conversation now. Professor Chuck Freilich, former Israeli Deputy National Security Advisor and Senior Fellow at the INSS and the Miriam Institute. Thank you very much, Professor Freilich, for joining us. Well, I do want to begin by asking about our first report from this hour, because earlier in the day, we've seen for the first time since the beginning of this war, 20 trucks of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip from the Rafah crossing, and the New York Times is reporting this hour that the aid shipments were not inspected for weapons before entering the Strip. Israel obviously demanded they will. How come, and what do you make of it?
Well, I don't know why that would be the case, because of course we want them to be inspected. But I think it's the more important point to mention here is the importance of getting the humanitarian aid in, because as much as we may be justified in trying to, or are justified in trying to apply every kind of pressure that we can on Gaza and Hamas, the international reaction to this was very severe, and it contributed significantly to this ongoing process of a turn away from the causes for the war, of the horrific atrocities committed by Hamas, to attention to alleged even war crimes by Israel, but certainly mistreatment here. And that undermines our PR campaign, our diplomatic campaign to maintain international support. So I think it is critical that we do everything that we can to get aid into Gaza.
And yet, obviously, a part of the different components of this equation, but if even the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken early in the day suggested that there are no reassurances that this aid will not end up in Hamas's hands, and if those trucks were not inspected, doesn't that pose a security risk?
Well, of course it does, but look, if most of it is really humanitarian assistance, at 20 trucks, it's not yet that big a deal, but we have to make sure that, okay, maybe this was a glitch the first day, but any ongoing shipments have to be inspected. That's got to be a basic condition. And I think we will have firm support for that from certainly the West.
Yeah, support is one thing. Implementation seems to be another. Well, reports in Iraq, Professor Freilich suggests that 2 drones were intercepted at the Ain al-Assad base in Iraq. American forces there. That joins those anti-aircraft missiles in Yemen. This activity we're seeing in Syria. A wider regional flare-up is not far-fetched.
Not at all far-fetched, and I would say that there's unfortunately quite a good chance that it will happen. Wow. This is something that we always knew could happen. We've prepared for it. Obviously, Israel would greatly prefer to fight a one-front war, but we may not have that choice. And here the American role is critical. On the one hand, I believe the Iranians and their proxies are trying to impose some sort of cost in the U.S. and to deter the U.S., maybe even it's part of an ongoing campaign that's been designed to drive the U.S. out of the region, to create a situation in which the U.S. wasn't willing to pay the price of being involved. Well, I don't think that's the case at this point. President Biden has taken a remarkably firm stand and deployed 2 aircraft carriers and the accompanying ships. I think the U.S. is here to first and foremost to deter this possibility of a 2-front war, and potentially, I don't think this is the American intention, but they could be drawn into it.
Professor Chuck Freilich, dire predictions, and yet these are just signs of the times, I guess. So thank you very much, Professor Freilich, for joining us, former Israeli Deputy National Security Advisor and Senior Fellow at the NSS and the Miriam Institute. Of course, thank you for this. Moving on to the Southern Front now, I-24 News correspondent Mary McAuliffe standing by there. Mary, we were just discussing with Professor Freilich this New York Times report that those humanitarian aid trucks that we've been talking about all day long entered the Gaza Strip without being inspected for weapons. Sounds like something that those who facilitated the entry of those would make sure.
Very involved in these discussions with Egypt and whether or not to let these aid trucks in. And that Israel agrees that they allowed 20 trucks in, but Israel's position has always been that it wants access to look into all of the trucks that are going inside the Gaza Strip. But of course, we're not talking about the Israelis here in Shalom crossing to go from Gaza Strip into Israel, which they can actually have their teams on the ground looking to it. This is the Rafah crossing that borders Egypt, so that would be left to those on the Egyptian side to do these inspections. And we didn't hear any framework that has been reached out once these aid trucks were allowed to go in. So we weren't really sure if Israel was still expecting that there would be these inspections. We know that Israel wants that to happen, but whether or not it would be feasible for them on the ground, whether they would have a trusted party who would be looking into the trucks themselves. Everyone around Israel would trust actually be carrying out these inspections. So that's probably been a sticky point in these negotiations, and we really don't have many details on that. All we do know is that these 20 trucks have been allowed to enter, and that of course the U.S. and Qatar are also looking to try to get more of these trucks in. There's some 200 trucks which are waiting on the Egyptian side of the border to be allowed in. And again, Israel is maintaining it wants to be able to look into those trucks to make sure that there are no weapons going inside the Gaza Strip that will end up in the hands of terrorists and to be used against Israel. Also, they're very cautious about fuel going into the Gaza Strip. So fuel has been one of the forbidden items. The only thing that entered on these trucks today was said to be food, water, and medical aid that was going directly to those who need it most in the southern parts of Gaza Strip, which Israel has designated to be a humanitarian corridor where aid workers can work to try and facilitate getting some of these aids in. But we're also seeing reports that some 20 to 30 trucks are maybe allowed to enter through the crossing tomorrow. But what the mechanisms behind that, behind these deals actually are, and whether or not Israel is fully trusting that these trucks going in are going to be checked by somebody, it remains to be seen. And we just have to wait to see if the Rafah crossing will indeed open again tomorrow. Of course, the foreign national piece of it is also an issue. Israel and Egypt and the United States have been working hard to try and get the foreign nationals outside of Gaza Strip to give them safe passage to the Rafah crossing. But today, when those trucks entered, nobody was allowed to leave the Gaza Strip.
If I trust in the nation, it will not be. I know what my existence must be very clear and say I have no expectation from this kind of place. Hamas was in the past. Hamas also when it's open to 36,000 liters of fuel that we are supposed to sell the civilians, etc. for themselves. So until the end, but we need to get down the list, at least we will pay some price, but at the end, we are still, in my opinion, free and the waiting for to see the return. This is something to under the United States involvement and the political force. And I think it is good because we do not take the leadership for granted. We don't really say,
Okay.
terms of giving the humanitarian aid, because as much as we may be justified in trying to, all justified in trying to apply every kind of pressure that we can on Gaza to Hamas, the international reaction to this was very severe, and it contributed significantly to this ongoing process of a turning away from the causes for the war, of the horrific atrocities committed by Hamas, to attention to alleged even war crimes by Israel, but certainly mistreatment here, and that undermines our PR campaign, our diplomatic campaign to maintain international support. So I think it is critical that we do everything we can to get aid into Gaza. Really humanitarian assistance at 20 trucks, it's not yet that big, but we have to make sure that, okay, maybe this was a glitch the first day, but any other shipments have to be inspected. That's got to be a basic condition, and I think we'll have strong support for that from certainly the support. This is something that we can look after, we prepare for. Obviously, if you would prefer to fight, really prefer to fight a one-shot war, but we may not have that choice, and can be very well, of course, critical. On the one hand, I believe the Iranians and the proxy are trying to impose some sort of cost in the U.S. and to deter the U.S. Maybe it's part of an ongoing campaign that's been designed to drive the U.S. out of the region, to create a situation where the U.S. will never want to pay the price of being involved. Well, I don't think that's the case at this point. President Biden has taken a remarkably firm stand and deployed two deployed company ships. I think the U.S. is here to first and foremost to deter this possibility of a full-time war, and especially, I don't think this is the American intention, but it could be drawn into it.
Egyptian side to do these inspections, and we hear any framework that